welcome to New Week right here on TV47. I must apologize for the technical hitch we had that has delayed the airing of tonight's show, but we hope you'll keep it locked all the way till the end. We have a lot lined up for you. My name is Leangari, and our sign language interpreter tonight is Josephine Ouko. We have quite a number of things to discuss tonight, and I have my able panel here, and they will be telling us a little bit more about tonight's topics. However, let me begin by talking about the fact that the government spokesman, Cyrus Oguna, has warned Kenyans spreading fake coronavirus alerts on social media that they will be arrested. A leaked video caused panic among Kenyans on Monday amid fears and caution to prevent cases of the deadly coronavirus. This even as the country chest that it can deal with the virus. Winnie Maganga with that report.
Across the globe, coronavirus scare continues to threaten countries as the number of new infection continues to rise. What started in Wuhan province of China has now spread to 57 countries with more than 3,000 deaths. Kenya's preparedness in dealing with coronavirus was put on the spotlight after the country allowed a Chinese plane with 239 passengers on board to land at the country's biggest airport, JKIA. A wave of public uproar followed that many Kenyans viewed as a carefree attitude in dealing with the deadly virus. And as fear continues to grip Kenyans over the virus, the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority, KEMSA, says the country is prepared to deal with the virus.
Some of these products are the masks that are used. There are several types of masks. We have the surgical masks, we have the general masks, and we have the N95. We have the gloves, we have the protective suits, water resistant and disposable. We have the gumboots, we have the service chemicals that will be used to clean the hands and the services. And we also have the beds, the beddings, and all those other aspects, together with the symptomatic drugs to treat any symptom like fever, difficulty in breathing, and headaches, and any pain that the patient may present with. Those are some of the things that we are prepared to procure, and most of them are within the authority.
The Ministry of Health has refuted claims in WhatsApp audio recording going round on social media that had indicated that Kenya reported its first corona case. Reporting for TV47, my name is Winnie Maganga.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have an able panel tonight with me in studio of beautiful ladies and a gentleman who are here to make sure that we totally understand tonight's topics. And with me here, I have Agnes Sibara. Agnes, thank you so much for coming. Agnes is a governance consultant. And also we have Anita Kirote, who is a governance, who's actually a political analyst. That's the title she prefers. And we also have Gerald Bitok, who is a political analyst, I can call him, and he's here to definitely make sure that we understand tonight's topics. Ladies, gentlemen, you have listened to that report by our very own reporter Winnie Maganga there on the coronavirus. I just want to begin by talking about first something that many Kenyans and of course maybe Africans are also asking. There's concerns or rather curiosity that has been cited where people are asking how come we've not heard of an African who has been affected by this coronavirus. I'll just begin with you, Gerald. What do you think this comment makes you feel as an African?
I think first of all, Africans are curious by nature. But again, there's a lot of danger in curiosity, because if you want to test the strength of a disease by maybe using data in terms of those who have been affected and those who have died out of it, then you get it wrong. And I think as a country we're in a bad place in terms of handling this thing. And in fact, we should stay away from speculating from the first place about the power of the disease and all that, because they say that it affects a human being. And I think every human being, despite the colors and all that, we still have the same strains in terms of immunity and all those kind of things. So it's a human disease that affects a human being. So I think we are safer preventing than trying to create statistics out of it.
All right, Nkirote, what do you think? It makes you think, as an African, you hear someone making such a comment. What does it tell you?
Leah, I believe the speculation was by AFP, an international news agency, and it also stems from a background of we had SARS and we had also MERS. All these are respiratory infections that did not come to Africa. Some have also alluded to the humidity and the temperature of the African continent, and they are looking at it as if the coronavirus is more prone to colder areas, winter areas, but there are still speculation, and I believe the necessary precautions should still be followed to ensure that every African is safe.
I think before Agnes answers this, the way it appears, I think for some they're asking, is this a racist headline, would you say? Agnes?
Oh, it goes to me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Leah, I think for me, I would start by actually looking at where we are with Corona right now, and I'd maybe throw into the light the statistics that we have right now. We have reported cases of infection at 80,000, and we just have confirmed deaths globally at 3,000. And it's good that we've started off with the media clip trying to maybe shed some light on the situation that we have. And I believe that this thing is being maybe blown out of proportion, and especially by the media. Because when you look at it and when the specialists and the experts are talking about this virus, we realize that it is something that, yes, it is killing people, but the energy going to it should be trying to explain how to prevent it than throwing mass and throwing everyone into mass panic.
But I have a question for you, Agnes. I mean, there's been reports of death.
Yes.
Right? Cases of death. And cases of people who are still, they're trying to recover from the virus. Yeah. So how can you actually say, perhaps, that the media is blowing it out of proportion when there are actual figures showing the impact of the coronavirus globally?
Yes, just taking you back to the numbers, just 3,000 deaths globally, and we are up against 7 billion human beings on Earth. And why I'm saying this thing has been blown out of proportion, we realize that Africa only has 3 to 4 confirmed cases. So I think, as Inkroti has said, we are engaging this thing with a speculative nature rather than an informative angle. And speculating doesn't help. And I think what the government has done is uploadable.
I'm not quick to agree with you about speculation, because I think there's actual statistics, actual figures that are actually in the public domain. So is there really speculation, or we're talking about facts?
Speculation on how vast this thing has gone. And I think I'm talking as a Kenyan, and I would like to maybe just call and maybe just make a clarion call to the Kenyans and tell them that this thing is not with us already, like it's not here with us. We have the presidential directive that has been given out today. You see, the president has released funds, the government has released funds just to give the people affected in Wuhan maybe the safety packs and their rations for the quarantine. We have the president telling the military that we need to man all our borders just to prevent entry. And it is not in our country yet. And what the government is doing, they prepared.
These are good steps to take, especially right now?
Yes, we just need support. The government just needs support from the media, and so that we can contain the mass panic. Right now, what is happening? We are talking about something that is not in our borders already.
But don't you think we should actually take action before it actually comes to us?
And manning our borders is action. Preparing all of the military facilities and all of the county and having county centers that can maybe isolate patients that test positive to this disease. I think it's preparedness enough. Having money, allocating a kitty that can take care of the people that are already in quarantine in Wuhan is preparedness enough. And what the government has done is enough for a disease that is not already in our borders.
Gerard, what do you have to say?
I would like to disagree with my friend here. And I think the media has the responsibility. You cannot combine media and the government. These are two different estates. And I don't think the media owes the government anything. And in fact, if the media has not taken the step to be able to notify Kenyans about what is going on, we'll not be talking about the precautions that are being taken right now. If you see the steps that the president took in terms of even forming the committee, the disaster response committee, it came out of the outcry of the Wananchi. And the outcry came out of a video that was circulated online. So we cannot make a mistake of lumping up the media and the government and expecting the media to bow to sanitizing the steps of the government. And I think we are being ignorant in the sense that this is not an experimental thing. And we have to be very honest with each other. If you look at the tests that are being done at the airport, at JKI, they are below par. When you compare the tests that are done in Dubai, the tests that are done in China, outwards coming to Kenya, it's a joke, literally.
So you think we're not well prepared?
I think, for me, I think the media has the responsibility, and I think the media should continue doing what they are doing, in the sense that we are better off handling propaganda than handling a disease. No, it's easier to live with propaganda. No,
I have a question for you, Nkirote. There's also this feeling of mistrust between, perhaps the Kenyans and how the government is handling this situation in terms of we are also expecting, and we hope that actually the coronavirus doesn't come to the country. Yeah. But why do you think there's some sort of mistrust from Kenyans towards the government, if there is?
Yeah, I think there's a general mistrust and lack of confidence in handling the coronavirus, but mainly it stems being that it's an international affair. And all countries, if you look at the Center for Fighting Diseases in Africa, there's panic among, CDC, thank you, Botswana, Nigeria, there's panic all over. Rwanda fired its health minister. Kenya, we saw the recent reshuffle, and now we have Kagwe Mutai. There's a general shakiness in the African continent. So for me, it's expected. Is the government prepared? I believe in the beginning, we were not prepared. We did not even have the diagnostic tools. Remember, we used to take tests to South Africa. Then we got the diagnostic tools. So the government is actually doing what it can. The question is it enough? For example, we have the government has a responsibility to its citizens. The Kenyan students stuck in Wuhan, and they're about 100, are not able to come back to the country. And retired General Cyrus Oguna issued the statement that these guys are in separate parts of Wuhan. Some are in the Roysambu, some are in Mathare of Wuhan, and getting them to the airport might actually increase the risk. So for me, the government is actually, every Thursday, the government spokesperson is giving us at least some form of direction and giving us a better way of handling the situation. Are we contented?
Agnes,
absolutely not.
I'm just wondering, shouldn't it be the government's work, mandate to protect the lives of its citizens? Because her concern is perhaps the government has not done enough to bring back the Kenyans who are in China. But what are your thoughts about this? Should they stay in China, perhaps also to protect, the citizens who are already here?
I'd like to say something. I think this, what you're calling mistrust, I think is something that Kenyans have built over time. There's been this public discourse of the Chinese with neo-colonialism bringing all the money and their bad debts, and us being stranger citizens, and a mass dialogue of how the Chinese are what can I say, they are pulling their financial power on us to their benefit and maybe taking advantage of us as a country. And I think maybe Kenyans are attaching those two issues. And I'd like to say that maybe it's time we separate the Chinese loans where Kenyans are angry about, the Chinese loans that the Kenyans are angry about, and the disease. And I don't think it's right to castigate all Chinese people as infected, bad lot. And I think that's some of the things that the world tries to cure, xenophobia and racism and all of those things.
Do you think the government is doing much to protect the Kenyans who are in China currently?
What I think about the issue, when you look at global public safety protocols and policies, quarantine is one of the things that is formally accepted. And the thing, it works like this layer. A breakout or a pandemic or a disease breaks out in, let's say, this locality, then quarantine, putting people in quarantine, makes sure that they do not spread the disease, or they also don't get the disease. And the conversations about pulling people from Wuhan, the 100, to Kenya, needs to be viewed from different angles. First of all, we need to first think that what if these people are not sick, and then we remove them from their houses and they get sick? You see, first of all, we need to let this situation play out in itself. Let them follow the safety protocol, be in quarantine, and also look at it in a financial aspect. Do we have what it takes as a country? Sending in an empty plane full of medics, and maybe we might not rule out the fact that these people have families, they have little children. Then we'll have to spend maybe specialists in these planes. And you see, like what Nkirote said, they are all scattered everywhere. So just imagine the logistical nightmare that would cost to locate all of the 100 Kenyans sprawn all over Wuhan and get them in a plane that has gone empty, and maybe make sure that also you put them, you get them from Wuhan, put them in a centralized place. You see, that is risking even more lives. And I think they're safer there than them trying to get out.
Gerald, how come that other countries are actually evacuating their people and we are not doing that?
I think, Leah, I would like to speak from a point of information, and I've spent enough time in China to be able to understand how their systems work. If you saw the way the plane came in with the percentage, 239, Kenyan authorities released these people and told them, now, my friends, go and quarantine yourself. In China, it's a different story. And in China, actually, they're able to track an individual, including the interactions they've had in a day, because of their cameras, which works with AI systems, artificial intelligence systems. And so they're able to know the interactions of the video. And if they want to recall you today, they're not go asking, looking for your chief. If they want to look for those Chinese, they have to go to the river to look for the police in Mlolongo and look for the chiefs to locate these guys. In China, it's just about a click of a button, and they're able to know how many interactions you've had. And when we talk about the people in China, Chinese government knows exactly where the 100 Kenyans are in one province. Yeah. And if it was about relocating these people, the government would have had the easiest way to do it. And I think if you look at a country like Tanzania, they've put a step to ensure that they recall their citizens back to their country, Tanzania. And I think we have a big problem when it comes to responding to issues until there's a pressure, some sort of a pressure in terms of public pressure. And the government, as much as we'll agree and say that it's not necessary to withdraw these people. But again, look at the conditions they're living in. There's a lockdown, a literal lockdown in one city.
But then why do you think perhaps the government seemed so silent about
the
this
government
issue?
is not only silent on the issue of recalling its own citizens, it's even reluctant in imposing rules on the Chinese. Get it? Because reverse the roles, assuming it was Africa or it was Kenya that had an outbreak of coronavirus, we would be having a lockdown in Africa in terms of going to other countries. So when you look at it, I think we lack in responsibility. And if you look at the steps that the Chinese government have taken, they have taken elaborate steps that you've not seen here. We've seen the KEMSA and the health minister today parading masks and saying we are ready. Mask is not a medical equipment. Mask is not drugs. You get it? You cannot tell people we are ready with masks. When coronavirus comes, we're going to give you a mask. So when you look at it, it's all joke in terms of how the government has handled this thing. And they are only waiting for the time we'll have even a bigger problem. And
Agnes doesn't seem to agree with you. Agnes.
You know, I'm waiting for Bitok to finish because I don't think we should allow him to mislead the public. The question of whether the plane from that landed with the 239 passengers, whether or not it needed to land, maybe that is debatable. There was no emergency, there was no need for them to land as he's put it.
But it was coming from the epicenter of the coronavirus.
But what we need to establish and actually put out there is that these people were screened at multiple points. They were screened in China and quarantined. They were screened at a stopover. They were screened at inside the plane, and they were screened at the airport.
And I think another question Leah has asked, actually, to be more specific, she has asked if why the government is not evacuating its own citizens. And I think there's been enough data from the people, from the civilians and the citizens in China, videos saying how they are suffering in China. You know, you are not only safe when you're locked in a house. You need food, you need facilities, you need this and
the
that.
government has released
and the government
money
talked about 1 million. I give you money today. I'll give you money today. There's a lockdown. Do you understand what the lockdown is?
Yes,
there's a lockdown.
I do.
It means the systems are not operating in China as such.
Yes.
If I give you even 1 million shillings today to sit with it in the house, will you it not? You'll not. You get it? So we need to look at it beyond the narratives that the government is giving and saying we have given you money. We need to look at the welfare, the overall welfare. Because you cannot lock people in a room and say you're going to be okay because we've given you money. We need an elaborate, and I saw an interview yesterday on a local TV station. Children there who are studying in school are contacting their parents and they are saying we are suffering. And the government is sitting under. I saw when Monica, I think Monica Juma, who was in defense, when she was being
that's the ambassador.
Who was being interviewed.
Just make your point a little bit quick.
The
because
point
you need
is,
to take a shot
when
break.
she was being interviewed, she said she was asked why Sarah Serem is not taking a national care, and she said, I understand Sarah Serem loves children. That's not an explanation from government. Give us the elaborate steps to be taken to protect your citizens.
All right, I want us to take a short break, and when we return, perhaps I'll give you some time, if my director allows, but I want us to take a short break. When we return, we discuss a little bit more about this topic, hopefully, and of course, other topics. But right now, I want us to take a short break. Quite an interesting discussion here, and very insightful, so don't go too far. New Week will be back shortly after this short break. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching New Week right here on TV 47. Before we went on a short break, we were looking at matters coronavirus with my able panel, and I'll introduce them again. I have Agnes Ibara, who is a governance consultant, and we have also Anita Nkirote, who is a governance, or rather a political analyst, and Gerald Bitok, who is also a political analyst. And before we took a short break, quite a heated debate. And I just want us to move on to something else here. Another story where Kenya has rejected claims that it is interfering with Somalia's internal affairs and dismissed them as fabricated for political expediency. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has to this effect written a protest note to Mogadishu in response to a statement issued on Friday by Somali ambassador to the UN, Abukar Osman, who said Nairobi was destabilizing his country. This even as Somalia National Army and Jubilant troops clashed at the Kenya-Somali border town of Bulawayo. Aaron Kipkoech now reports.
Monday morning, along the Kenya-Somalia border town of Bulawayo, a heavy gunfire exchange between Somalia National Army and Jubilant forces rends the air. The once vibrant town is brought to a standstill. It was a brewing tiff between Somalia and Jubilant, whose genesis lies in the presence of fugitive Jubilant Security Minister Abdirashid Janan that led to the scuffle.
Received a total of 10 casualties from the battlefield. 6 of them are civilians, 4 are men in uniform, we don't know their identities.
Any houses that are destroyed, the government of Kenya must take responsibility, because we said it and we will say it, and we cannot, we cannot accept it anymore. That we have more problems than other people's problem. We cannot. The government of Kenya cannot allow other people's solve other people's problem while we have our own problem. We don't have teachers. We don't have. Al-Shabaab is now becoming a menace in the whole of the country, and now the Kenya government, through Kenya Defence Forces, is supporting fugitives.
Kenya's Interior Ministry, through a letter to newsrooms, distanced itself from fueling the tension and negated claims that the two forces were fighting in Kenya. This attack comes just a day after 11 members of parliament from northeastern region were arrested after a trip to Mogadishu to meet Somalia's president, Mohamed Farmajo. Kenya now says its borders are secured. Aaron Kipkoech, TV 47.
Well, let's make sense of this particular story that has just aired. And I'll begin by asking this question. Is there a diplomatic row between Nairobi and Mogadishu? I'll start with you, Gerald.
I think, first of all, for you to understand the situation in Somalia, or to explain what is happening, you'll have to understand the dynamics in Somalia. And you need to break it down. Because when you say there's a diplomatic row between Mogadishu and Nairobi, it will be a bit misinformed. Because why is there a diplomatic problem? When you look at Somalia, there are 3 people, or there are 3 groups which are warring. There's a Jubilant forces, which is a breakdown of, which is a Raskamboni, actually, which was part of Al-Shabaab. There was one. They were all part of Al-Shabaab. And they broke off. Now we have Al-Shabaab and we have Raskamboni.
So are we saying there's no row?
I don't think there's a row. There's a row in Somalia, not between Somalia and Kenya.
But hasn't there been an evident push and pull between the two?
The thing is, there's a fight within Somalia on its own. Jubilant, Al-Shabaab, and the Somalian central government are in loggerheads. This is why. Jubaland wants to secede from Somalia. You get it? Jubaland is being led by Sheikh. It's led by Sheikh Mohammed Mobadi. And the president, and then there is Al-Shabaab. And then there is the central government of Somalia.
I know Agnes is not agreeing with you, but I have a question before we go too far. There's an actual case by Somalia at the ICC against Kenya. So how do you say that there's no row?
Now, this is what as we speak right now.
I think we need to define
Somalia,
diplomatic row.
You know, when you look
because
at this,
you're giving us about internal issues in Somalia.
What I'm giving you is,
which is okay. But what is the definition of diplomatic row?
I think what has just been aired right now is a fight on the Kenyan border within Jubaland. And when you look at Jubaland, Jubaland is aligned within the Kenyan border. You get it? And the fight has been within the border. And the argument is,
but the fight is at
Mogadishu is claiming that Kenya is hiding the head of Jubaland in the country. You get it? And the reason why they are fighting Kenya is because they believe that they want to support Jubaland. You know, Jubaland has been very instrumental in the war against Al-Shabaab. Jubaland and KDF have almost been working in the same way to fight Al-Shabaab. And you need to realize that Al-Shabaab and the central government of Somalia, their clan is in politics in Somalia. There is the Maharen and there is the Ogaden.
Allow me to just bring in Kirotin.
Yes,
Kirotin,
thank you. I agree with everything he's saying. However, it does not answer the question on the definition of diplomatic row. Diplomatic row will cover affairs between two countries, and in this case, Kenya and Somali, and now you can add in the UN, you can add in the AU. One, is there a diplomatic row in Kenya versus Somali? I'd say yes. We have the maritime dispute issue. We have the issue of the UN ambassador from Somali taking Kenya to court over this. We have the 11 members of parliament from Wajir and Garissa going to meet President Farmajo without clearance from the speaker, under order 260, where a member of parliament traveling out of the country must write to the speaker and give the specific dates.
Do you think there was a problem for the 11 MPs to go meet the Somali
president?
A big. Why do you think so?
Wait. I'm still not done. Before we get down to that, is there attempts of, you might say, espionage, which means we don't know what secrets that the members of parliament went to give Mogadishu without clearance, remember, from the government. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs seems to be unaware. There are also reports that they met with the National Security Agency of Somali, and under whose instructions were they operating, even meeting the president. And they brought certain issues. They're talking about they want to solve security matters in the northeastern border. Security function is not under the in the constitution of Kenya. Security matters are not under the preserve of the county government, much less the National Assembly. They are a preserve of the national executive. So all these it's a total diplomatic row, according to my case. I do not disagree with my brother on the facts of the case, on the invasion, on Jubaland, but when it comes to international cases, we are in trouble. And even Kenya will also take Somali to the international, to the ICC and also to the UN Security Council, still on the basis of the same thing. And finally, Kenya is also vying for a non-permanent position in the Security Council, which means Kenya is also in a very weird state, because you're vying to keep peace, yet you seem to be not at peace.
Let me hear from Agnes. First, I'll ask you, Agnes, was there really something wrong in the 11 MPs going to meet the Somali president?
Definitely, Leah. There are clear laws that dictate any kind of relationship that any Kenyan citizen should have with any external country, and more so with the MPs. You need clearance, and it's dictated by law. You need clearance from the Speaker of the National Assembly and also the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
I have a question. I mean, for someone who's listening to us right now,
yes,
of course there would be that question from a common Kenyan out there who's asking, you want to tell me the Kenyan government did not know anything about the movement of the 11 MPs into Somalia?
What has been reported is that they snuck out of the country, and so far we don't know what they talked about, what they went to do, and that is a security concern. So yes, I think they should be summoned by the Committee of Defense and Foreign Affairs that is in Parliament, and they should answer these questions. And I think even there, the authorities should also act very fast to find out what is happening. But also we can't rule out the fact that when you look at the MPs that serve in that part of the Kenyan country, they come from the same clan as the Somali president, Farmajo, and you see right now what is happening to the diplomatic relationships we have right now is that there is a power shift. Kenya has been in this space, and it has been seen as the horn of stability. It has been seen as the peacemaker. It has given this region stability, and it has been an authority. But now we are seeing that this power is shifting when we see countries like Eritrea, Ethiopia, and Juba coming together and to form a bloc, and it's like they're in agreement, and they are doing this as a Cushitic tribe. And they're unifying, and so this is slowly reducing the powers that Kenya has, and this is what I think is fueling this row that we have, that plus the ICJ issue.
Gerald, the picture we have now is that no one actually knew that the 11 MPs were going to Somalia, but is that really the case? In you analyzing the whole situation, would you say that is the case?
I think the function of analysis, first of all, is to look deeper than what you're being shown, and that is where I think I disagree with my sisters, because there's a difference between seeing and analyzing. And the report that was given yesterday was that they have been following them since Saturday morning. Why they would follow them since Saturday morning until they get to the airport, and then they follow them in Mogadishu when they are being chauffeured into the president's villa, is a question for another day. It means that, again, our security systems are very porous. And you need to look at it this way. It's not the responsibility of Parliament to engage governments on terms of diplomatic issues. So it was wrong, first of all, to even allow that to happen. They should have intercepted. And again, it comes down to how responsive we are as a country. Because right now we are talking about a problem that have already happened. These guys came yesterday and they said we are only talking about the security of Northeastern. You get it? And they don't have the responsibility to discuss the security of Northeastern. She said they come from the same tribe. All the MPs, all eight MPs, come from the same clan, the Maharems. And so you look at it in a way that it's also endangering the sovereignty of this country. After that meeting yesterday, there's a fight in Northeastern, in Jubaland. So I think if the government claims that they were trailing these guys since Saturday morning, then they should have made the necessary steps to stop these guys. And if they did not stop these guys, they should tell us what discussions went there. Because the function of intelligence systems is to be able to tap information. Yeah. So I think the government failed us, the security systems failed us. And if it's true that they were trailing these guys, they should have stopped them at the airport. Not stop them when they are coming back. It means they were not aware. Mm-hmm. That is why they did not stop them when they were leaving. They stopped them when they were coming back. So there's a lot of negligence, and I think that's the reason why we only even respond to terrorism. Right now, everyone is okay. The security systems are very lapsed until there's an attack. Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, I mean, with what you're saying, Gerald, the fact that they are said to have met the president, and then again there's that whole issue between Somalia and Kenya. What exactly is happening? In Kiroti, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts is the issue is also bigger than it looks because the case against Kenya and Somalia, if you remember the ICC trial, it was postponed from September 2019 to June 2020, and we are currently in, let me say, March since February. So that's about 4 months, and we have basically a direction on the maritime dispute border. Now Somalia had sued Kenya, and now it looks like now Kenya is in a bit, and then Somalia will report Kenya to the UN Security Council, but then again now Kenya can counter sue on the basis of infiltration, because now the MPs are looking as foreign objects or local agents who are, because there is no proof of what exactly was discussed in the meeting. There's no way to find out. The the ambassador to Kenya to Somalia was not aware. So I think there's a lot that meets the eyes, and we will soon see between now and June 2020.
Your comment, Agnes?
Of course, it's a big issue. You see the case that's at the ICJ. Kenya is, if the ICJ rules in the favor of Somalia, Kenya is going to lose about 6,000 kilometers of the coastal line, and that will make Kenya landlocked. And like what I had said before, Leah, is we are dealing with something that is a shift of power. There is a creation when Abiy got into government as the president of Ethiopia, as the prime minister of Ethiopia. They came together with Ramajo and the leader at Eritrea to form the new Horn. They are consolidating their powers as the new Horn, and that leaves out Kenya. So this issue is as big as Nkeroche tries to describe.
Now,
I think, allow me to make a rejoinder on that. And I think, first of all, you need to look at the interest of the four parties. We have four parties. We have Al-Shabaab, which has almost established as a government, which is a renegade, an outlaw. Then we have the Jubaland government, which is starting to stabilize itself. Then we have the Kenyan government, and then we have the central government of Somalia. These are different groups that have different interests. And when you look at the interest of Kenya, these borders have always been there. Why is it that Mogadishu was never pushed for a case in the ICC 10 years ago? We went to Somalia to stabilize Somalia. But again, once we stabilize Somalia, they're starting to have the problems within their own systems. And I'll tell you this, the reason why Mogadishu is fighting Nairobi is, for one thing, the interest of Kenya is to secure its border. And Jubaland actually runs along the Kenyan border. And this is what the Kenyan government is trying to do. It's trying to stabilize Jubaland so that it can become a buffer between them and the Al-Shabaab insurgents who are coming from the other end. But again, you need to realize that a port like Kismayo, which is very integral, falls under Jubaland. And Mogadishu is feeling bad that the Kenyan government is siding with Jubaland instead of siding with establishing Mogadishu. So there is a conflict of interest within this part. And you realize that now Al-Shabaab...
How can there be a conflict of interest, considering that Kenya is hosting quite a huge number of the population from Somalia?
Yes, that is true. But again, you need to realize that there is a government outside Kenya. There are Somalis in Kenya, and that's the reason why you saw these guys going to Somalia. Because at the end of the day, they share some sort of ties. And there's been a push since pre-independence that the northern corridor of Kenya wanted to secede to Somalia, to form one boundary with Somalia. So this is a discussion that seems to be going on under the carpet as you speak, because you cannot just look at the visit of the MPs to Somalia as just an event on its own. There's something that's going on under the carpet. And you heard about the northern frontier that was supposed to be formed. It's all a discussion that needs to be discussed. But again, when you look at the Maren clan mostly are the ones who are in Kenya. And between Maren clan and the other Maren clan who are in Mogadishu, there's the Jubaland, who are the Ogadens.
I have a question for you, Gerald. Yeah. So what do you portend for this particular situation between Kenya and Somalia?
This is how I look at it. And the problem is that we got ourselves involved in a house that has its own in-house problems. When they were fighting each other, they had a common enemy who was Al-Shabaab. Remember, Jubaland and Mogadishu central government were fighting Al-Shabaab together. And then when Jubaland established itself as a government in Jubaland, Mogadishu and Al-Shabaab now had a common enemy. Al-Shabaab and Mogadishu, the majority are the Mahrens. You get it? So they had a common enemy that they needed to fight. Because these guys are establishing themselves and they're becoming a kind of a buffer between the Kenyan boundaries and the Somalia boundary. And they're closing in resources. Because if you look at the way the Jubaland is operating, it's operating with the resources at Kismayo. And the only resources that Al-Shabaab are getting at the central government are through the taxes that they use on the roadblocks. Al-Shabaab has set roadblocks on the road that they take tolls of charcoal that is being transferred in between. When you look at the armies that belong to the central government of Somalia, there is no structure in terms of how they are enumerated.
So the question is, what do we portend for this particular?
So this is how I look at it, because we cannot also forfeit our interest as a country. We must protect our borders. We have the sovereignty. And for us to protect our borders, we must ensure that our neighbor, which is Jubaland, our immediate neighbor is Jubaland, we must ensure that it's stable. You get it? Once we ensure that it's stable, it means we have a buffer between us and the insurgents who are in Somalia, Al-Shabaab. So I think Kenya cannot back off on its own interest. And if you see, the whole thing about even the borders at the coast is drama that's being treated by Mogadishu to be able to put Kenya on a bad light. And when you talk about Kenya not being, Gerald say that Kenya has been seen all along as a country that has pushed for peace. Yes, it's pushing for peace, but we cannot sacrifice our own sovereignty at the altar or fixing your own problems.
Thank you for those comments. Yeah. I want us to move to the next story here, where the Employment and Labor Relations Court has halted Nairobi Governor Mike Sanko's impeachment motion until due process is followed. The decision by Justice Piram Ongaya on Monday comes after Sanko filed an application seeking to stop the county assembly from debating tomorrow's impeachment motion against him on grounds that the process is a sham.
Notice paper 1. on tentative business of the third respondent on Tuesday, 3rd March 2020, or as may be adjourned to another date and time, shall not proceed except in strict compliance with the provisions of Standing Order number 67.
Well, it appears that Sanko has self-relief, finally. We'll begin with you, Agnes. Quite the one interested in matters politics.
Yeah.
I want to hear from you. What do you think about today's court proceeding?
Procedurally, it was ruled according to law, but we can't also look at it in isolation. I think for you to critically look at the issue, we have to ask ourselves a couple of questions. Why do we need there not to be an impeachment motion against the governor? And maybe the motivation here would be that Kenya is not ready for another election, leave alone anything that would economically strain the public coffers. And maybe the second question would be, if you are really pushing for the impeachment of Governor Sanko, what does the rule of law state? There is the presumption of innocence, and we have to really leave it to the hands of the law and the justice system to dictate how this process flows. So we can't look at that ruling in isolation before understanding all the dynamics around it.
All right, yeah. Nkirote.
For me, I believe in looking at former presidents and how other impeachment motions have gone, especially the procedure. If you remember the likes of Embu Governor Wambora, the guy with 9 lives, the MCAs had been pushing for quite some time. Then last year we had Granton Samboja, also the case, the MCAs tried to impeach him 3 times, and all of this fell short on the procedure. And for this case specific for Governor Mike Sanko, it fell on the basis of he had not been summoned before. And also, again, on the standing orders, Nairobi County Assembly, you cannot just bring a motion to remove a governor for the first time. The MCAs, especially the clerk, cannot see the motion the first time when you're drafting it. So in terms of procedure, it was totally wrong by the MCAs who tried to do that. But if they did follow the right procedures, then maybe we would be discussing the matters at hand. You cannot because he also needs, how will Sanko defend himself? For example, if you're being accused of corruption, then you need evidence of, you need to get evidence. You're told you acquired, perhaps this is an hypothetical example, you acquired a certain piece of land, you did A, B, C, D. Then you go with your documents and you explain exactly what happened. But the procedure in this case was, I'd say, null and void.
Gerald, what do you think about this?
I think, first of all, I would like to look at it from the political angle of view, because, and we are running into a danger of setting up precedents. If you look at what Sanko was accused of, the same things that Waititi was accused of, corruption and all that. And the reason why I'm saying we are running into setting a bad precedent is because what happened to Waititi is not what has happened to Sanko. And the conversations that have been going on all along was that, I remember when the Sanko's issue started, he was being told, now go to Capitol Hill. When you come out, you'll be very clean. And you're realizing that we have a political cleansing procedure. The president summoned the county assembly, including Sanko, to State House. And they prevailed upon the county assembly not to launch an impeachment debate at the county assembly against Sanko. So you look at it this way, we are talking about fighting corruption. And I believe if we are very serious about fighting corruption, then we need to set a very level ground. Because in law, things never get erased. When you look at decisions that are made in courts of law, there's a reference. They'll say, we refer to Sanko's case in 2020, February, this and that, this decision that was made. Then again, the remaining 47 governors who might be accused of corruption, then it means they have a leeway on how they are going to argue their cases. On the case of legality, the court made its own decision as we speak. But again, it made a decision on a halter of politics, because it has not been taken through the necessary procedure. Why would we suspend the impeachment motion, for instance? Because that's not taken off. Why didn't the president summon the Kiambu MCAs and told them, don't impeach Waititi? You can remember the Gazette notice for the impeachment of Waititi was printed at 10 p.m. at night.
There was no crisis in Kiambu. They had
when you talk about crisis is relative because
I have one question for you, even before we go too far. Yeah. You've mentioned the executive. Do you think perhaps the executive is trying to influence the situation as it is?
You know, this is what I would say, and I would also speak as a politician, and I would say this. I've been in Jubilee. I'm a good member in Jubilee. And I've run for a seat, I've lost, but I understand how the dynamics work. And from the word go, the systems never wanted Sanko to be the governor of Nairobi. That is what it is. And at some point, Sanko wanted to bolt out to go to ODM to get a direct ticket. You get it? So this thing is just an egg that has hatched late. When you remember how Sanko fought his deputy governor, it was very strategic in the sense that you've given me a guy who is going to hold a position, then you hold me out and you make this guy deputy governor. Ask yourself, why Sanko has never appointed a deputy governor? Because he was protecting himself. He knew what was running after him. And it was just a matter of time before it got down on Sanko. And I think we've seen the discussion that have come before. And if you are an analyst, you need to look deeper into things. This conversation started a long time ago. In 2018, it was like saying we need to make sure that Nairobi is a metropolitan on its own that is being run by the national government. These were debates that are being made to prepare the public. And the issues that have been done against Sanko, the corruption cases and all that, was to buy the public silence. You get it? But again, these intrigue political games inside it. And that is why the president took us. And you say, my sister here said a crisis. A crisis is very relative. Nairobi County was, Article 187 says, you hand over functions that you feel the national government can do better. You get it? But again, at what point, what threshold do you put and say, at this point is when you're going to hand over functions? You get it? So for me, I feel, and it's actually 100% satisfied opinion that the executive is interfering with the running of devolution. And
I have a question, yes, even as we continue. For you, Nkirote, do you think there are genuine grounds towards impeaching a governor, following what we have actually seen happening to Governor Sanko?
Yes, I actually believe there are genuine grounds to impeach Governor Sanko, especially if you look at, again, comparing it with Kiambu County. It's still the same thing, abuse of office, corruption. If you look at the Auditor General report, I know all counties have fluctuated once in a while, the Public Finance Management Act, but Nairobi is completely falling short. And I agree with my brother on the metropolitan state of Nairobi, and even the BBI report recommends a special treatment of Nairobi County because this is the headquarters of Kenya. We know how many international agencies have in Kenya. So for me, I believe this had been even the plan when Polycarp became the deputy governor to at some point avoid a situation whereby Nairobi is at the mercies of these political whims that we are seeing there, here and there.
Fantastic. So Agnes, as I take it down to all of you, and this is my last question to all of you, do you think then the Nairobi County is safe or in good hands under the national government?
I would say yes, and we are about to see maybe more efficiency in the execution of functions. And you realize that the president invoked Article 187 of the Constitution, although very many people wanted him to invoke 192. And I think it was a wise decision for him to go with 187 to have Governor Sanko transfer some of the critical functions from the county government to the national government, so that we can have an uninterrupted flow of services, and the citizens of Kenya, of Nairobi, can be served. You realize that right now, Leah, there is a huge crisis. People have not been paid. There are no supplies in the hospitals. There are no supplies in our schools. The county staff is disgruntled. So we don't have a deputy governor. We don't have a substantive county secretary. There is no CEC that is on full-time basis. And so, yes, that is a crisis that I was talking about.
Let me hear from you, Gerald. Briefly.
I think, first of all, the crisis is man-made to begin with. It's man-made. It's very artificial in the sense that the things that Sanko is being accused of is happening all over the country in terms of counties. We have corruption cases and all that. With that said, again, I think the move by the national government to take over the functions of Nairobi County in those integral parts is kind of good, because now we are having a government that is fighting the executive and the county assemblies and all that. So I think we are safer in the hands of the national government at this point. But again, we must ask very difficult questions. How did we get here is the question. Because when you talk about corruption cases, it's happening all over the country, in all the counties. So do we dissolve all the counties and have them being run by the government? And when we talk about the gains of devolution, this is a point when we should be empowering devolution. Whatever the case, there are challenges. Even the national government with its Big Four agenda is dead and buried. We have the Big Four agendas. We talk about BBI. So the national government cannot claim to be able to implement devolution better.
All right, thank you so much, Gerald. We'll just close with Gerald tonight. I'm so sorry, Kiros, we're running out of time, but I'll be sure. I'll be sure to call you back again. You guys are just an amazing panel. Thank you so much for making time, my able panelists. Here we have Agnes. Agnes, you have been amazing. We have also Nkirote and Gerald here who have been talking to us about different issues that we have highlighted today. Remember, the discussion does not end here. You can continue writing to us through our social media platforms. That is TV47KE across all social media platforms. That is Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Thank you again for watching. My name is Leangari. This has been New Week, and our sign language interpreter tonight has been Josephine Ouko. Thank you for watching. Until next week, same time. God bless.